They're all around.
Yeah.
All you got to do is ask.
Hmm.
All you have to do is ask. And people are afraid to ask because they think they get rejected. You may
True.
get rejected, but what do winners do? Keep asking. They just keep asking. It's not that difficult. So this is what I do, Tiffany, and that's how this miracle on the Hudson changed the direction of my life. And I'm honored to be with you and do what I'm doing today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to my podcast. This is Unveiling Journeys. My name is Tiffany Alexander. And at this point, if this is your first episode, welcome. If it's not, you know, I'm obsessed with the power of hanging out with incredible people, the power of networking, referrals, masterminds, all of the above, so that way you can level up. My favorite thing I just sort of invented saying out loud is I kind of want to be like the dumbest person in every room because I could only look up and learn from the incredible people that I'm surrounding myself with. And what that means is today you get to meet an amazing human being because we met at a networking event in Phoenix. And I have to go around every room to say, who are you? I need to know you. Let's be friends. Who do you need to know in your life so that way I can introduce them to you or opposite? So I get to unveil his journey and I get to bring him in. So please welcome my friend, Dave Sanderson. I'm so happy to have
Thank you
you
so
here.
much thank you for having me, Tiffany. Wow, I'm so excited to start. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So I want to do this. I want everyone to tell, or you to tell everyone a little bit about you and who you are and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, thank you. I grew up in rural, Ohio and Virginia. And after I got out of college, my goal was to be in international business. That was my whole mission. And unfortunately, in 1983, there was a recession and that didn't come to fruition. So my dad gave me 30 days to be out of the house because I needed to get a job. And I got in hotel restaurant management, which I knew nothing about. But after I did that with that for the next 35 years, I was in sales and sales management and primarily in technology sales. And so I traveled a lot. And, I was also during that time, Tiffany, I was the head of security for a gentleman by the name of Tony Robbins. I don't know if you ever heard of Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
but I had the opportunity to be by his side for a number of years to support him and his mission. And now I have the opportunity to have my own mission. I speak around the world. I have 4 books that I've authored. I publish my own magazine. I coach and mentor people to help them get to the next stage of their lives. And I'm a blessed person.
Oh my gosh. So you're doing incredible things. You're coaching, writing books, being on stage to inspire, encourage, and do amazing things with people. This is definitely not everything you've done your whole life, right? Because you have such a big journey in it. Let's take a step back and start at a little bit of the beginning of the stages of where you are at, where you're at right now. Tell us about that.
Never intended to do what I'm doing right now. My game plan in 2009, when all this sort of started changing for me, was to be the top sales producer, make a lot of money, have a great life, and get my kids through school. And then that would have been a very successful life in my perspective at that time. But life has a funny way of changing things when you're not ready for it, and that's what happened to me on January 15th, 2009, when I was working, doing my thing, and one day I get out of my job a little early. I was in Brooklyn, New York. We were done end of a 3-day business trip, which ended up in Brooklyn. We were working in a distribution center and doing systems checks. I was in technology sales. So we want to be there when all the action was, and all the trucks were coming in 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So we wanted to see all the action so we could sort of get our head together. So
Hmm.
we got done at 10 o'clock, and it was on a Friday. I was like, this is great. I get to go home early. I mean, great, outstanding. But I called a travel agent and worked with her, and then she put me on a flight called U.S. Airways Flight 1549, which is now known as the Miracle on the Hudson.
Mm,
So I was not intended to be on that plane.
yeah.
So, all of a sudden you're in a situation where you're not planning for, and I can, I mean, I got on the plane like I usually do, didn't pay attention like most people. I tell people I hallucinate 95% of the people who get on a plane, and probably you and everybody's listening, don't pay attention. Everything, they know everything, right? Nothing's going to happen to us, right? So, that's exactly the mindset, Tiffany, that I had that day. Boarded, got on there, and all of a sudden, we had some excitement happen.
Yeah. For those of you who don't remember, this is an incredible moment in aviation history because this was one of the times that it was all almost like practically broadcast. It was on the news immediately and everybody made it. And tell us more about that because this is incredible of the actual story that has like coined terms to it. So I love this story so much. I love when you unpack it. So tell us more.
Well, thank you. And you're right. And one of the interesting points about this was actually Twitter's first, how Twitter came out. This was the first big thing on Twitter. And you got to remember, this is in New York City, and everybody's now tweeting about this. So yeah, here's a short version of a long story. So, it was 11 degrees that day and snowing. The flights were delayed. No big deal, right? You're in LaGuardia. Have you ever been in New York? Not a big deal. And so, we take off, nothing out of the ordinary, right? Everything's very cool until about 60 seconds after we took off. It's when I heard a big explosion. And now I fly a lot, and I've never heard an explosion on a plane. You know, I looked out the window and I saw fire coming out from beneath the left wings. My first thought was, okay, we lost an engine. And one thing I know about planes is they always have multiple engines. Yeah, in the United States, you have to have at least two engines to fly, commercially. So, all right, we got another engine. But that's when I think, I think, and this is my personal belief, God's grace entered, because no one on the plane knew at that exact second what happened on the left side of the plane where I was, C-15A, also happened on the right side of the plane at the exact same second. So there was one explosion. And so everybody thought, okay, we have another engine.
Yeah.
But now we didn't have any engines. Both engines were taken out immediately. So now, all of a sudden, you start banking. It's like, okay, we're going back to the airport. I'm not getting home early today. But then all of a sudden I started looking out the window, and all of a sudden the skyline of Manhattan was exactly right out my window. I'm like, we're right up against the skyline of Manhattan.
Yeah.
And if you saw the movie Sully, which if you haven't, I won't spoil the whole thing for you, but the first scene is actually what we were looking at. Because the first scene of that movie shows the plane actually going right by Manhattan. So you see these big buildings. It's like, wow, I've never seen that before.
Right.
And all of a sudden you're like, okay, where are we at? And I sort of look out, and you see this big bridge coming up very quickly. It's like, I've never seen that before. And all of a sudden you hear the only words you heard the entire time on the plane. This is your captain, brace for impact. Ooh. And once you hear that, you knew something serious, because no one ever says that on a plane unless something's happening. And that's the moment when I think, I did it, but I know a lot of other people that I've spoken to on the plane had the same thing. This is serious, and or the word that the captain used was dire. Because now the only option you have is to go into the river, because you can't, because if you saw the movie Sully, he couldn't get back to LaGuardia. Yeah, he could have tried, but it would have been tragic. His other option is he could have gone into the ocean, off water, no one there. He could have gone to try to go to Teterboro, which is right there, but they have all those big skyscrapers. And if you miss it a little bit, you're running right into a skyscraper. So the only option he had was the river. So now you're sort of bracing, and you should put your head down. And what I did is I prayed. I just prayed that, God, just, just give me up, take me, and wherever you go to do, take me, right? Just forgive me for my sins. Because if something did happen, I want to make sure he and I are connected at this point. I say, I don't want to be in the bad boy seat now. I want to be lined up, right? And then the last thing I prayed for is the last person I spoke with, who was my client in Brooklyn, to call my wife to let her know that I loved her and take care of her. So then I put my head down, and it was approximately 60 seconds, Tiffany. By the time he started descending over the bridge is when he crashed into the river. It was that fast. But I tell people, and I actually spoke with somebody last week about this. They were also in a near death situation where that last minute is so long. It's like, you think 60 seconds is nothing, but when it was that last moment and you're thinking you're going to die, and the movie of your life is going through your head, and all of a sudden you're seeing things from 40 years prior, like with clarity. It's like, wow. And you have so much clarity on what you're on this earth for. And what my thought was, what I missed. And what I missed was spending time with my family, because I was so focused on making money.
Yeah.
That was my focus. And that was my biggest thing. It's like, man, all these opportunities that I missed because I was so focused doing what I thought dads were supposed to do.
Right.
Some people sort of give me some grief about it, but I said, you got to remember, my dad grew up in a depression, and his model of the world in the 60s, when I was being raised with my sister, was dad's work, mom stay home, raise a family, which may not be the same case now. Maybe it's a different world now, right? But that's what I saw. That was the model of the world that I was doing. And then I realized I missed so many things from my kids because I was so focused on making sure my family was taken care of, which I could take care of, was doing that. But now you're heading straight to the river.
Yeah.
And, he crashes into the river, and he estimates he hit between 110 and 120 miles an hour. If you've never don't know like kind of speed hit is, we had
Mhm.
somebody from NASCAR, the car racing organization, on the plane with us, and she actually talked to some of the drivers, and it's like going into the wall at 200 miles an hour. That's how
Gosh.
hard a hit it was.
Yeah.
So when it hit, I went back in my seat and up in my seat very quickly, and I came up and I opened my eyes and I saw light out my window. So I knew I was alive, but now you've got a whole nother problem.
Right. The
Yeah, you're
Hudson.
alive,
The
but the
Hudson.
plane's sinking.
And it's 11 degrees outside.
It's 11 degrees outside and the water's 36 degrees. So one of the things that you don't see, have you seen pictures? And usually the picture you see is from the front of the plane. But what people don't realize is what happened when he hit the river, it was actually ice. He broke up the ice. That's why we slid for
Yeah.
100 or so yards. Because he basically, when he hit, the ice started breaking up.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So now you got water coming inside the plane, because as he hit the backside first,
Hmm.
the back of the plane becomes disengaged, which it made an opening. And now water, you have something open, something's got to fill it, and it was water. So now I've got water up to my knee already, and I'm in 15A. I'm halfway between the front and the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the back we got a lot of more water. The front doesn't have as much because this plane is like
Yeah.
this.
Right.
And now you got another problem. You got to get out.
Hmm.
Now, I grew up playing athletics and sports, and all the teams I was with, we always had a game plan before we went to a game. So, when we were going down, it's like, man, if I have a chance to live, what am I going to do?
Hmm.
And my game plan was aisle up out. So I kept saying in my head, aisle up out, aisle up out, aisle up out. Because one of the things I learned through my time, and then with Tony Robbins especially, is when you say something over and over and over, it gets ingrained in your body. So I want to be able to respond quickly. So I said, aisle up out. So, all right, we get up. It's my time. I got to the aisle. I'm going up. I'm ready to go out. And then something happens. It changes that day for me. And I believe changed the entire direction where I was probably going to go. I'm ready to get out. And all of a sudden I hear my mom start talking to me. And my mom passed away in 1997.
Yeah.
But she would tell me something when I was a child, and all of a sudden just popped into my head immediately. It was, if you do the right thing, God will take care of you. And I tell people, I think after I've sort of looked back on that moment, it was a pivotal moment. Is one of the great things about my mother, which I'm not as good as a parent as my mother was, because one of the things my mother did much better than I did with my kids, is she made her kids make a decision. She didn't say, do the right shit. If you do the right thing, and I had to make a choice. What was the right thing for me? And that's the way we grew up, because my mother believed in having consequences, positive or negative. So she gave her kids a great skill set, the ability to make a decision, which is very critical in life, as we know. You got to make a call. So instead of going out, I climbed over the seats to go towards the back of the plane. And when I got back there, the water was about chest level deep. But things were moving pretty quick, because, now you got to put things in perspective. This is approximately 3:37 p.m.
Hmm.
on a winter afternoon in New York, overcast, and it was dark in the back of the plane because the plane is already submerged.
Yeah. Past the windows, right?
It's
Yeah.
already past the windows. It's submerged. We've got water up to here. And the impact came in the back of the plane. So that jarred the bins open. So now you've got luggage. It's
Floating.
now floating in the water.
Oh
You
my
know,
gosh.
and you got water up to here. You can't barely see anything. So you just basically, what I did is I focused on the person in front of me. I was the last person behind that person. I just focused on that person, start feeling the seats. Then I saw a light on the right side of the plane. Like, man, I'm out of here now. Time to go. And I started to get out of the plane. I looked up, and it was an amazing sight. There was no room on the wing. The wing was already filled. That little lifeboat was already filled, but people were already being rescued. This was only like 2 to 3 minutes.
Whoa.
People are already being rescued. I said that evening, someone said on the news, I think they got it right. They said that the crew got everybody down that day and the crew and passengers got everybody out. But the real heroes of the day were the first responders.
Hmm.
If they were there so quickly.
Yeah.
So that's why I was inside the plane, waist deep in 36-degree water for about 7 minutes, holding on to the lifeboat. People say, why hold on to a lifeboat? Well, what happened is this. I don't know if you know anything about the Hudson River. I've learned a lot about it. It's got an extremely fast current.
Oh, I didn't know
That plane
that.
actually floated down the river about a half a mile in 24 minutes.
Whoa.
Because that plane is floating down the river. That little lifeboat is floating out into the river. And they, like I and Tiffany, I bet you, who reads the instructions? No one reads the instructions. It's actually tethered to the plane, but no one knew that.
Yeah.
So they kept yelling, hold on, hold on, hold on. And that's why you see there's a picture I show of me holding on to the lifeboat waist deep in the water for about 7 minutes so people could get off until the wing so they could walk down and get off.
Yeah.
That's why I was inside the plane for getting the last passenger out.
Yeah. And you were that's your thing. You were the last passenger out. You put everyone else's life before yours because anything could have happened still with that airplane. And
Yeah.
whew,
Yeah. And one of the other things that I share and sort of the inside baseball side of the things is, that when that picture was shown on Good Morning America, that's when I found out. I
yeah,
didn't know. Well, that's when I found out. But when people see that picture, some of the questions when I do Q&As, they say, well, where's the flight attendant? Well, the flight attendant got injured. She went out to front left on first class left. So the right side of the plane was managed totally by passengers who had zero training and had to step up. And I tell people that's one of the biggest lessons of leadership out of this. You don't have to know everything about everything. If you're a leader, you can lead people. You can direct people. You can influence people. You can give people certainty in times of uncertainty.
yeah,
And that's what I think some other people did because I had to manage a door and I had no experience. I didn't know how to do this,
yeah.
but you figure it out and lead people. And I think leadership and teamwork were probably two of the biggest factors that came out of this. Because did you see the movie?
I'm not a movie watcher. I didn't, but I know I saw a bunch of the clips and commercials and it's so good. Yes.
I want to tell you something that was said in the movie. The mission of the day was actually stated in the movie, which a lot of people missed.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I mean, I was like, as soon as I heard it, I'm like, that's it. Because a mission of the day was no one dies today.
Ooh.
And I think what happened, everybody checked their egos at the door. And it's one of the lessons, another lesson out of it. When you believe in the mission you're on, you have a team, you have a mission. If everybody buys in, you can get anything accomplished. I mean,
Mhm.
you had 155 people, Tiffany, did not know each other, who did not care about each other, who came together in less than 7 minutes.
Yeah.
It did something that had never been done
Yeah.
in the history of aviation because everybody was focused on the bigger picture instead of
Mhm.
themselves. And that's how I think really why this turned out the way it did.
Absolutely. I love your story so much because it grows into something from this moment, reshaping your life entirely. What did this do on your priorities and your purpose, even your perspectives of everything from here?
Yeah, thank you. Number one, I think everybody's got a worldview of things, right? And I had a worldview of things. One of the first biggest changes before I answer that question was I had a worldview that I got hit across the face with. And what happened was about 6 weeks after the plane crash, about 25 of the passengers and all the crew were invited to be back on Good Morning America. And we got done with our interview. And if you know anything about these shows, they got a green room, they put you in and all this stuff, right? So we're in the green room, and one of the passengers get very vocal, very animated, to say the very nice way to say it. And I'm sitting there going, what's wrong with this guy? I mean, we survived a plane crash. We're on national TV. What's wrong with this dude? And what I found out later was he was going through a divorce and he lost his job. And what he associated to the plane crash was devastation. And I said, how many times in my life have I judged somebody so quick? I've done it all my life. I judge people quickly. I said, what if I could just change one thing in my life now? Change that worldview. I said, you know what? Just don't be judgmental. Not till you know the person. Know their backstory and origin story first. And I started practicing that, Tiffany, over and over. And ingrained and say, you know what? I'm not going to judge anybody until I know them. That's changed the destiny of my life. And I think, what Martin Luther King Jr. said was true. Just judge people by the content of their character. If you just do that one thing, this whole world will be much better. Now we're
Right.
judging people because they don't like the way you think about politics.
Right.
You can't have a conversation with your neighbor.
Yeah.
It's
Just like with an
crazy.
ounce of grace to people for understanding. Even I'm trying to implement in my own life, like, why didn't that person go? Or what is happening? It's like, we don't know what's
Yeah,
happening in their life right now. Just an
exactly.
ounce of grace to provide for someone else. You never know
Yeah,
when they need it.
exactly right. And that's the biggest worldview shift for me. But that also shifted what I was going to do. And I still was going to be in sales, right? When I was going through all this, because I mean, things were happening so quickly. I was on every TV show in the world and every media. So it was coming so quick. So when I got back to Charlotte the next day, I didn't know if my company even knew I was in a plane crash. They didn't call me. They didn't call my wife, which is actually worse. You always call the spouse. Always call the spouse. Just heads up. If you own a company like I do, if something happens to one of your associates, call the spouse, right? check in, but they didn't do that. So I went by the office. Two of my girls were with me because my wife did not want me to drive home alone in Canada. I shouldn't have been driving at all, but I had my car there for I want to get home.
Right.
I stopped by the office. I said, I just let you know, I made it. I'm all right. And the first thing my manager said to me was, "You're going to Michigan next week, right?" And that's the moment, Tiffany, I knew that I had to get out.
Yeah.
I had to check because I said, I was a top producer and all he cared about was my number. He could have cared less if I died on that plane. And, I know that his boss told me later that I should have come to him and he would have taken care of things. But, I think that happened for a reason, a purpose, because it had to set me on my mission.
Yeah.
That was the first step. I said, okay, I have to do something, but how do I do it? Right? Because I have a wife and 4 kids I got to put through college. And I'm making a lot of money. Let's put it on the table. I was making a lot of money. How do you give that up after 30 years? Right? But I knew I had to. So something else happened. I had 2 other things that happened that sort of gave me the direction on how to do that. So the next weekend, I spoke in my church for the first time. They asked me to speak at men's breakfast. Why not? Bunch of old guys eating pancakes. I got it. No big deal. And I didn't know they invited half of Charlotte and 600 people show up. They moved the breakfast over to the gym. And now I don't even know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So, I'm freaking out. I go behind. I said, "God, give me something to say, man. I need it. Give it to me." Right. He gave me something to say that day. And I didn't even know what I said. But I get done speaking and 2 men wanted to talk to me. One was from Bank of America, a bank, and one was from Wachovia, which is now called Wells Fargo. They had people on the plane with me, and I was cool with that. It's no big deal. But then I look up and I look in the back of the room. So I've got a vision. We're in a gym. I'm at one end of the gym. I sort of look in the back and these older lady staring at me, staring right at me. And she caught my eye. And all of a sudden she starts making her beeline all the way around to my left, comes all the way in, comes into this conversation, just walks in and grabs my left arm really tight. And I jump because you got to remember, this is a week after a plane crash.
Yeah.
I am sensitive on a lot of levels. I was pretty beat up, right? You get knocked around a little bit. But she looked me in the eye and said something that changed that day and changed everything I was doing. She looked at me and said, "I was questioning if there was a God. I don't believe in miracles, but you are physical evidence that there is a God and he does miracles. Thank you. Thank you." She let my arm go and looked me in the eye, walked away. And I look at these 2 gentlemen, Tiffany. I've never seen 2 men cry like this in public. I had 2 men bawling in front of me. And my minister was behind me witnessing this whole thing. He saw the whole thing. I look around like, "Hey, what's going on?" And then it came to me. What happened to me on January 15, 2009, now it impacted somebody. Before she goes to her great beyond, wherever that is, now believes there is a God who does miracles because I'm physical evidence. So now I have to do something. I've got to do it because I have a mission now. But how am I going to do it? Right? I still got to make money. And then a couple months later, something happened. Probably about 6 months later, something happened. It was like August, September timeframe. I was still head of security for Tony Robbins. And we were in Chicago at an event. And I was still doing my thing, right? But I'm doing my thing now too. And he called me into the suite and said, "Listen, I'm going to find another head of security." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because if I don't do this, you'll never do what you need to do. You got to go do it." He was in my face, said, "You got to do this. This is your mission. This is the time to do it. Don't worry. You can do it. You can do it." Just give me a certainty, right? And that's when I started having certainty that, you know what? I can do this. I can take this and help other people in a lot of different ways, which tied to something that happened in 1997, which I'll talk about in a minute. Well, I'll let you ask questions. I've been talking for a while, but that's how I got to where I'm at. Those are those 3 things that happened pretty much within a 6-month period that drove me to be able to do what I'm doing all over the world now.
This is the best part. I mean, you being able to tell your story with such clarity and showing people your mission and the vision of how you got there and what everything looks like, because now that you know you're making such an impact, even if it was just one person, but it's not just one person now. Now you have a bigger voice and you're empowered to be able to go out and do all these things. So of course we want to hear the rest. I'm dying to know.
So now I'm going to go back to 1997 and give you the backstory now, how this whole thing really, really was the impetus. It was the underlying pinning that all of this. So as I mentioned, when I got out of college in 1983, my dad gave me 30 days to get out of the house. And one thing about my dad, and I say one of the greatest lessons I learned from my dad, Tiffany, is be a man of your word. Whatever you say, you got to back it up. And that's one of the things I tell my team. Everything that we talk about, we can back everything up of what we say. So I wasn't out of his house, so I'm going to be out of his house. But he helped me get my first job. Like I mentioned, it was a hotel restaurant manager, which I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about it, but I was out of his house. So I fulfilled the promise, right? My third stop was here in Charlotte, where I'm living right now. And, I was second assistant restaurant manager. It means I was working second in graveyard. I wasn't working 9 to 5. But that turned out to be actually the blessing that I needed because, every night there's a gentleman and a lady would come into the restaurant. His name was Bill. Her name was Bonnie. He was, at that point in 1983, he was 77 years old. He's an older fella, wore a flannel shirt, drove a pickup truck from North Carolina. Good old boy, right? He'd come in and have coffee and ice cream, and we talk every night and just talk. And, he's a cool dude, right? Very cool dude. And one night I was in there with him. I said, I was dating my future wife. And I said, Bill, I don't know how I'm going to take her out. I have no money. I mean, I don't have money. He goes, listen, here, take her out, take her to the movies on me and just tell me how it goes. I said, well, thank you very much. I can at least take her on a date, right? So we go out to this place called Queens Park. It's no longer here in Charlotte. It's a movie theater. And we walk in and I give the guy the tickets and he goes, tell Mr. Bill, hey. And I said, sure. Yeah, no big deal. So the next day I come back and I see him that night. He goes, well, tell me what happened. I said, well, I went in and it was a very nice experience. Thank you. But this guy told me to tell you, hey, he goes, yeah, I own that movie theater. He
How
said, by
about
the way,
that?
I've owned 80 movie theaters and restaurants since the 1929 in the Carolinas. He was a multimillionaire.
Wow.
He
Just
was
pouring into you.
His nickname in Charlotte was the Bill Walton of Charlotte. You never know who this dude was,
Right.
but he was a millionaire. So now you've got my attention,
Mm-hmm.
right? So fast forward to December 24th, 1984. He rolls in the restaurant early that day, about 4:30. And who's working because who's the low man on the totem pole, right? I'm working second and third shift on Christmas Eve, right?
Yeah.
But he rolls in. He said, "Listen, I want to show you what I got Bonnie for Christmas." It was a brand new blue Corvette. Now I had never seen a Corvette. I couldn't spell Corvette. I never smelled a Corvette. But at 24 years old, it was the coolest damn thing I ever saw, right? I was like, whoa, this
Yeah.
is cool, man, right? He goes, listen, let's take a spin. So he totes me the keys, and we get in there, and we go up and down Woodlawn Road in Charlotte. We come back, and I give him the keys to, hey, Bonnie's going to dig this, man. This is a cool gift. He goes, you need one of these. Bill, I'm making $13,000 a year. I can barely afford my rent. He goes, that's your problem. Let me show you the mindset it's going to take to be successful. So for 13 years, he mentored me.
Whoa.
He shared these lessons and things he learned and gave me experiences. And one of the experiences I actually replicate now within my coaching, what I do now. So I did for 13 years. He's just teaching me all this wisdom. So it comes to April of 1997. And I get a phone call from Bill. He goes, I need to see you in my office quickly. So I rush over to his office. He goes, listen, I want to share a couple of things. Number one, he says, I want to let you know I've got lung cancer.
No.
Bill smoked unfiltered cannabis since the 20s. It was not shocking, surprising, but not shocking. And it was one of those things like, I can understand why he got it, but it's too bad. But then he walked over to his desk. He pulls out all these crumpled pieces of paper, and we're sitting there, and he puts them on my right lap. I said, what is this? He goes, these are the handwritten notes I wrote in 1929 on how I was going to be successful. I want to give this to you, but you got to promise me something. I said, what? He goes, do not let this die with you.
Yeah.
And he passed away September that year. Now I have these notes. I have all this wisdom in my hand. What do I do with it? They were in my credenza. Fast forward. You get back in 2000, I forget what the year was, but I get a phone call from my wife. I think it's like 2010, maybe 2011, after the plane crash. I get a call from my wife while I'm standing right here. She goes, listen, the neighbors down the street, they need some help with their TV. Can you go help them fix it? And they're two older ladies. And I grew up in a small town, Tiffany, where everybody knew everybody and everybody helped everybody, especially an elderly person, right? You go help your neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just the way I grew up. So I said, of course I'll go down, right? So I run down there, I fix the TV, and they said, would you stay for milk and cookies? Now, I love milk and cookies. I don't know about you. I love milk and cookies, especially for a couple old ladies who could probably bake, right? They've been around a while, so they could probably bake. So I'm all in, right? So down south where I live, we have these things called parlors. And basically they're sitting rooms. That's all they are, sitting rooms, right? So they put me in the parlor while they're doing milk and cookies. And I'm looking at all these little books they have out there. This is really cool, right? Looking, wow, it's pretty cool. So they come back in. I said, hey, I've never seen some of this. Where did you find this? And they both looked at me and rolled up their sleeves and showed me the numbers and letters down their arm. And they said, we're in that book. They survived the concentration camp. I'm blown away. I'm like, tell me the story. So for 2+ hours, I'm hearing the story, how they survived a concentration camp. Everybody else, their mom died, and their mom's last thing they told her before the mom died was never part. You're the only people you love is each other. That's why they never got married. So I come back here, I'm shaking. So I'm thinking, oh my God, I got it. My book's going to be called Moments Matter. And the reason why is because these ladies made all the moments in their life matter. They went through the most traumatic experience anybody could and survived. So I'm shaking. So I open my credential, and what do I find? These notes.
Yes.
It's like, first I'm like, what an idiot I am. I've had this for 18 years, and I've done 15 years. I've done nothing with it. But second, I didn't fulfill the promise I made. And what was the lesson my dad taught me?
Be a man of your word.
Be a man of your word.
Yep.
That is why, a long way, I do what I do.
Yeah.
Because now I'm fulfilling this mission. I have a mission to teach this all over the world, all this wisdom that I was taught. And the last thing I talk about when I speak on stage is you are expected to mentor somebody and take somebody and give them all your wisdom before you die. Because once it's dead with you, it's dead.
Yeah.
It's gone. So he gave me his wisdom. I'm passing it along now, along with other things that I've learned in addition to my 10 years being with Tony. And Tony in my second book actually talks about for 10 years, he basically layered on everything that I learned from Bill. He just layered on it. So when you have the opportunity around mentors and people like that, you take the advantage. Mm-hmm. You take the advantage. So one of the things that I do now, and when I coach people, I have a group coaching and I do individual coaching, but everybody has this opportunity. I have what's called mentor dinners. See, Bill used to take me to his what he calls kitchen cabinet lunches, where he sit around with the boys talking about business, and I just sit there and listen. So all I've done is replicate that. So what I do on a quarterly basis now, Tiffany, is I take my coaching clients, and we'll go to one of my mentors or somebody of significance who's a thought leader. Like we just came back from Fayetteville, Arkansas, with one of the top marketing experts in the country. And for 3 hours over dinner, he dumped his whole load and has offered to help my team with any of their marketing challenges. I do this on a quarterly basis, and I've been so much request, I'm now opening it up for other people. If you want to come, you want to be a part of our mentor dinner, so you can sit around with a thought leader and have access like I had access. Now you can have access. And so that's one of the reasons I do what I do.
Yeah.
We're all expected to leave what we have with somebody else.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the biggest things people, how do you find a mentor? They're all around.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is ask. All you have to do is ask. And people are afraid to ask because they think they get rejected. You may get rejected. But what do winners do? Keep asking. You just keep asking. It's not that difficult. So this is what I do, Tiffany. And that's how this miracle on the Hudson changed the direction of my life. And I'm honored to be with you and do what I'm doing today.
Absolutely. This is what it's all about. And I agree with you 100% to the lessons that you've learned and being able to carry that forward. And if you don't say anything, which is some of the lessons I've found over the years, that's like, this is what's impacting me to keep moving forward every single day, is like the idea of not I don't want to be a gatekeeper to everything that I've learned when I could summarize it for someone beautifully or implement it into someone else's life and be able to let them keep living on. And if anything, when you hire a mentor, the goal is to get you to somewhere where you want to go, either faster, better, smoother, avoiding the landmines that they have hit, the potholes, right?
Exactly right. That's what my second book's about is I say 12 of the lessons he taught me. And I go through these lessons in this book, right? But what I found, Tiffany, which was really interesting, I think it was one of the greatest insights that I came out. And so I'm writing this book over COVID, right? Because what we're going to do, I'm sitting here in my office, we can't go anyplace. So I'm about to write a book. So I wrote a book about 12 of these lessons. Now, as I was writing this book, Tiffany, it's called From Turmoil to Triumph. What I realized is this: my mother and father, but most of my mother, taught me the same lessons, but you're too close to them. Sometimes you need that third party who has a different influence. And that's what happened. My mother was teaching me the same things, but she, when you're with your mom, you're fighting, right? I mean, there's some little tension, right? And you're too close. Yeah. And that's why everybody needs a mentor. Why do you think Michael Jordan and LeBron, all these people have men coaches? Because they understand the way to get your outcome, to compress decades into days, is to find somebody who's walked the walk, who can, like you said, I'll show you the landmines, get you there in a way that you'll never have the opportunity to get. It might
Yeah,
take you 10 years where somebody like me or somebody like you can do it in 3 months.
absolutely. And then people have to understand there's layers of mentors that you're going to have in your life. Some of them are going to be seed planters, digger uppers, waterers, and there's going to be fruit that's going to come from these things that you're doing when the student is ready, the teacher, the right people are coming into your life so that you can make these things happen. I have a question. The people that are best benefited from finding you and hiring you for what the mentoring style that you have, what do they look like? What's your ideal person that you're like, man, they're crying for help if they look like this and they need me.
That's a great question. I tell you exactly because we for a year we really researched that. Said, okay, who we have a lot of different people, but if you look at the person who really is the right mold and right is attracted to me is somewhere between 35 and 48 who've been in the corporate or business world, who've hit what I call halftime. They've been there, they've done that. They're trying to get to that next level. They don't know how to get to that next level, or they're like, I can do this myself. And I need someone to lead me to figure out how to transition because I went from making a lot of money, being a top producer, one of the biggest technology companies in the world, to starting my own thing. And I did it seamlessly. Now there are always bumps, right? But I did it. And they're like, how did you transition? How did you do that? So people who are in that transition mode, it's usually that 35 to 48 who have been there 10 years or so, 10 to 15, 20 years. It's like, I've had enough. I want to get out. I want to do my own thing. Or how do I get to that next level? And that's when I can really impart the wisdom and the mindset and the resiliency and things like that about how you do it and the steps. Because, I think, I don't know if you know, but I went back into the Hudson River back in 2001
Yeah,
to
you told me
swim with the
about that.
Navy SEALs.
Hmm.
And, there was a couple of major reasons I did it. Number one, I wanted to raise money for those folks, those Navy SEALs who are up on hard times. The suicide rate's out of control. Back in 2021, the suicide rate for special ops and people who are in the military were 25 a day. Now it's 42 a day. It's out of control.
Yeah.
That's the first reason. But the second reason I did is this. I want to show my kids, especially, but other people, how do you face your fear? How do you go back to some place that almost took your life and you face it? And I had swam for 40 years. So I had to figure out in 100 days, I had to figure out from swimming 25 yards to 3.1 miles in some of the toughest water in the country. And I did it.
Yeah.
So the strategy that I share, it's a 5-point strategy. I share this strategy. I did it in my business. I replicate it. So all I share with people is I can show you in 100 days how to get an outcome. There's 5 steps you have to do. If you miss one, you're not going to get it. So that's how I do it. I take my coaching clients or people who will say, I need to get this big outcome. How do I do it? Okay, let's talk about it. I'll show you. We'll show you how to do it. I'll give you the 5 steps to do it, and I'll hold you accountable to those 5 steps. If you miss a step, you're not going to miss it. So it's worked for me for the last 30 years. And one of the things I learned from Tony is success leaves clues. Model those who've got the outcome because a lot of people talk the big talk, but they have never walked it.
Yeah.
So everything I talk about is I've walked.
Yeah. Hands down. One of the questions that I love asking people, I think you already answered it, but it's you've definitely already answered it, but I love just reiterating it. Why do you try so hard for everyone else to keep doing what you're doing for them?
It's the mission that it was really given to me. Let's say like this, it was the promise that I made, and fulfilling that promise is the mission. That's the mission. So that's the reason I do it. I see. I think everybody's got so much potential, and a lot of it all starts up here. It all starts up here, and I mean I've seen it over and over and over. And the people with fear and they lack certainty and they don't understand what's driving them. And it's like if I can help them distill this very quickly, and it's very easy to do. Okay, it's not simple, but it's easy to figure out how to do it. If I can help them unblock all this so they can see their potential and take their run at it, then I have helped them be able to help the next generation and what they're trying to help. So this was driving me. What I'm doing now, Tiffany, is not my work. It's not work. The work is getting up every morning and swimming the train with Navy SEALs. That's work.
Yeah.
All right. That's something that you have to do and you have to, but this is the mission. So when it's the mission, it's not work. So I see so much potential in people and most of it is just holding themselves back. They don't have certainty in themselves. They're scared of them, scared that somebody else might say something, that, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. My wife did that. I mean, I'll succeed. She goes, listen, calm down a little bit. You don't have to be the top guy every time, right? And I'm like, okay, maybe that's your belief system. My belief system is I want to achieve.
Mhm.
Now it's different. It's like, how can I add value to somebody and enjoy the process?
Yeah, hands down. I love that. My mantra for 2025 that I didn't realize until about February was I'm a hope dealer for people. Like I love seeing that they can hope enough, but I hope more for them to be able to encourage them and leave them. And I love that you're doing that as the mission of your company and the ability for you to tap into
Well,
these
that's what
amazing
Tony did for
people.
me in Chicago. He saw more in me than I saw in more in me.
Yeah.
He saw more in me than I did.
Those are
And he just need
incredible
to kick
people.
me in the backside. You just need, and have you ever been around Tony? He doesn't mince words.
Yeah, right, right.
He doesn't mince words.
Oh my gosh, I am so grateful for your time. I love hearing your story so much. I know it gets deeper, and I encourage everybody who's listening right now to go and follow Dave, his channels, his everything, because the story that he shares is intensely longer than this, what we have time on the show today. But if you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm in that bucket, I'm in the category, I need to know Dave, I need to be a part of what it is that he's doing. Dave, tell us where they should come find you to friend you and connect with you about this.
Well, thank you. I would definitely start with LinkedIn because I drop new content all the time. But I'd really encourage, for people who say, you know what, I like some of this I hear, but I don't understand how to put this together. I don't know how to do it. Go to my website, check out the mentor dinner, and meet me in one of these cities. And I'll not only spend time with me, but spend time with one of my mentors. And you see the full impact of what we do. Is that, you'll get not only what I get to be able to do, but I bring in people with expertise. Like the next one we're having is in San Diego with a gentleman who's one of the top financial thought leaders in the country. And in October, we're having it with Val Condos Fields, who's a 7-time NCAA gymnastics coach championship with UCLA. So she's going to talk about teamwork from a female perspective, or leadership from female. So I bring people like this. You can't get access to them. See, that's one thing Tony taught me. He brought me in front of people that I could never get access to. Success leaves clues. If I can give you access to somebody you could never be able to get access to, and you get access to them, what could open up? So I would encourage you, check me out on LinkedIn, but also go out and check out my mentor dinner, because I'm opening it up now to 3 to 4 people who are not a part of my coaching program. And I'd love to have somebody there with me that I can start a very intimate way coaching you in 3 hours, sort of give you the perspective on what your potential is.
My dear Dave, you are a blessing to everybody that you come into contact with. I'm so grateful. Thank you again for your time. Everybody, you'll see all the show notes below so that way you can go and connect with Dave in multiple ways. And again, thank you for being here on the show. Thank you for sharing your story. It is incredible. I love it so much. And everybody at this point, wave bye to Dave because he's going to go, but you're going to catch him online. And thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us at the podcast. And I'll chat with you guys soon. Bye.